Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again, Mishmash Monday. I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. We're starting to warm up a little bit. They're saying by this time next week we might get quite a bit above freezing, which will be really nice. Couple things to talk about. I want to thank you all so much for your input on Friday's video about my oil burner tank situation. Boy, not only did I get some fantastic responses from you, but I learned a ton of stuff. You know, like I said, we have such a diverse amount of our subscribers. We have a few literal experts on the subject out there, but no matter what I talk about, even, do you remember a couple weeks ago at Home Depot when I was going for my ladder and I had the aircraft coming in and we were looking at the airplanes coming in? Well, one of our subscribers is a pilot, and he flies into LaGuardia, and he always uses that Home Depot sign as kind of to line up to the runway. Yeah, so that's interesting. And like I said, I want to thank you so much for all your help on my my dilemma there. And it's so far, knock on wood, everything is going good here. And I took a lot of your suggestions, and I will put them to effect, especially come where the weather gets a little bit warmer. We got a few things to get to today, a true mosh, so let's get started right away. Last week we did this fire extinguisher for our buddy George. You want to watch his Classy Brassy Challenge, and this was a lot of fun. A lot of you had fun. It's still going on to the 30th, so if you get your entry in real quick, you're in. But one of the items I was going to do, but I wasn't sure if it was brass or copper. That is this vintage, and I do have a slight collection of lawn sprinklers. I just love them. And this one here, these were vintage. They you could see them because they would attract a lot of purchases because they were made of either brass or copper, and they looked real nice. But now look, you know, tarnish is one of the things that happens. So let's see what we can do with this here. First of all, obviously this was in somebody's basement, and there's some paint. You know, it fell. Whenever people are painting, it gets everywhere, right? So you got to pick off the paint first, and there's a few spots there, and you got to be careful because this is, again, easily scratched. And if you think you're going to go over here with a knife and scratch it off, you're going to put deep scratches in there. That's hard to get rid of. So let's try and get rid of these easily. One good step to start off to try and remove paint, especially if it's kind of thick like this one here, is one of these plastic razor blades, okay? And if you can just press under here at the right angle and give enough pressure, a lot of times you could pop up. You see, like we just did, we popped that off there. But sometimes it won't come off, especially if you have something like this here, you know? So sometimes you could hit it with a little bit of heat and melt it. But if it's thick enough, you know, sometimes you could, like this one here, came off easily. But over here, this was a thinned out piece of thinned out, maybe an oil base. We'll hit that with a little bit of heat and see if that won't soften it up. Now, it don't take long, but once you hit it with a little bit of heat, it'll soften up the paint. You can see here like this, and then you could scrape it off here with our plastic razor. See that, how that came off? Now, again, if you tried that with a regular razor blade, you would leave scratches there. And if this is copper, copper's real soft. Now, when trying to cut through thick, hard tarnish like this, anytime, the first thing you want to do, there's a couple ways. You could do it physically, which means you could use the buffer wheel. You could use Scotch-Brite, steel wool. That's physically doing it. Or you could do it chemically. And chemically, to get a head start, you want to use an acid, okay? And there are different types of acid. We can use the acid that's in Barkeeper's Friend, like I showed you last with the fire extinguisher. But this here is called Prep and Etch, and this is phosphoric acid. And I'm going to show you, we're going to put a little bit on here like this, okay? Now, this is the same stuff you put before you see if it could, before you're going to paint it. And usually any kind of acid will help bring up the tarnish, that, you know, the deep tarnish. And this, like I said, is called Prep and Etch. And that's how you buy it. You can buy it here, and you can see what it's doing. And this does indeed look like copper, and you can see how it's dissolving the tarnish, okay, with just a toothbrush and a little bit of elbow grease. And then we'll take a piece of paper towel And that'll give you a head start. There's the tarnish. That'll give you a head start, because if you try and manually remove all this, it takes a long time. So it's nice to get a head start with a chemical, especially on the inside surfaces here. And with the phosphoric acid, sometimes you just let the acid do the work. You just, let it sit. Now, once you get it down, you're going to have to, you want the acid to neutralize it. And to do that, you're going to, wash it. I use a little bit of Comet and water before we start buffing it. But this is a good way to get through a lot of that heavy tarnish without so much manual labor. Okay, now this is just with chemicals, okay? We did it with the phosphoric acid. We went over with a sponge and a little bit of Barkeeper's Friend, and we're up to this point here. Now you can see we're getting down. We got through most of the tarnish. Tarnish is a real pain to get off, as you know. Now we're at the point where we can start polishing it and getting the luster back. Now, you can see here where that paint was, and you could see over here. And I told you about the dents that you didn't see before, but you will see when it's polished. But now we're going to start using a physical abrasion. So we could use the steel wool. We could use the Scotch-Brite wheel. I'm going to try a little Brillo first, because copper is very soft. And I don't want to, I'm always concerned about the inside here. So if I go with the fiber wheel, I really can't get in that. So let's see what Brillo does. Now this is after the Brillo. I love when we can use home remedies, home cleaners, things like that. It just makes it so much better. No real harsh chemicals. You can see what the Brillo did. Gave it a nice, a semi-luster. Now we're going to try one more thing, because we still got some little areas here where, remember, this is copper. It was at the end of the hose. People would throw it. It wasn't cared for like if it was a tool or something. You can see little dents and things like that along it. But the 3-foot rule is what we're looking for. So now we're going to try the fiber wheel. Anytime you're going to try a new abrasion of any type, try it on the back here. See how that looks before you go to the front. And we'll see. We got some nicks and things. We'll see if we can't get out. Nicks over here, you see? The fiber wheel is an abrasion and abrasive, and it should take that out, those small nicks. Let's do that and see what it looks like. Okay, that's with the fiber wheel. We got rid of most that, remember, I was showing you over here. Get rid of a lot of scratches, things like that. Now we're ready for a little bit of polish. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of the electric polish, but mostly hand polishing. This is almost all hand work in here, so we'll hit it with a little of this vintage metal. Any kind of polish will work on this, and let's do that. I'm calling this project done. What do you think of this, huh? Nice before and after on this one here. You can see the back came out all nice. The sides, the insides, all the ones I was worried about here, the corners. This was mostly done by hand. It took me almost 2 hours, but I think it looks really good. I love vintage sprinklers. This will look nice in the middle of the lawn on a hot summer's day, just sprinkling out there, huh? What do you think? Okay, next up, real quick, I got a couple great packages from a good friend of the show by the name of Carrie Searcy out in Pineview, Missouri. And Carrie also has a fantastic channel, which I've watched many of her videos. She has a ton of videos of movies and old TV shows. I Love Lucy, all kinds of stuff. You got to check out her channel. Is Ozark Bonsai, and she has all kinds of entertaining, all free. So if you want to watch a nice movie, head over to her channel. But she sent in, and she's been a subscriber for a long time, and she sent a box, a couple great things. First of all, she sent this tanker that's the second half of a Hess truck. She didn't know the year. I believe this is 1990, I believe, but this was the old style. The original one was this exact shape and size, but it was green. So I think they redid it again in 1990. Also, check this out. A whole box of the most awesome vintage automotive light bulbs, and this is just a treasure trove of stuff here. But what I love most about this vintage stuff, especially NOS stuff, is the boxes that it came in. And for example, here we have your GE automotive bulbs, right? General Electric. And now if you notice here on the side, on the end, they'll tell you what it is, okay? These are 1154 bulbs. Now, on here, I'll tell you from 6 to 8 volt. This was meant for old cars. This is pre-1950 cars. A lot of them were 6 volt. So this was 6 to 8 volts and 21 and 3 candle power, okay? Now, what this was this is your typical bulb that would be in your brake light, okay? Now, when it says 21 and 3, you can see the difference in the filament. I'm going to try and can you see the filaments in there? You'll see that one filament is very thick and the other one's very thin. The top one's very thin, bottom one very thick. And what that is when it was a running light, when you just had your running lights on, it would use 3 candle power, which just enough that you could see the light lit up. However, when you hit the brake, it would hit 21 candle power because it was a much thicker filament. And there are the 2 contacts on the bottom, and the casing was the ground. So if you hit the ground and then you hit one would light up. If you hit the other one, the other would light up. So it's excellent. And NOS bulbs, again, 6 to 8 volts, all these, because these are from that era. These were the headlights, the headlight bulbs. Again, low beam, high beam, you know, so there's 2 filaments in there, 2 contacts. And if you look on the side here, this was the number 2531, common number, 6 to 8 volts, and 50 or 32 candle power. So 50 if you had high beams on, 32 was your regular low beams. And how great is this Lion? Look at the beautiful packaging. You know, when you went in to get a light bulb, you needed a light bulb for your car. Just look at that. I love the old-time graphics on these. Aren't they great? Made in USA, unconditionally guaranteed. That's when we made stuff back then, you know. Now we import everything, and we don't know what we're getting, but that's just, isn't that fantastic? And all kinds of Westinghouse, Mazda lamps, so all kinds of great lamps. And she also sent over another box of kiln-dried walnut. Look, I think it's walnut, right? You guys, you woodworking guys who know much better than me. All beautiful, straight-grained. Listen to this. You can always tell a good hardwood, right? And boy, is this nice, huh? We're gonna have to take a piece of this over to the lathe, and just to show you, when you're working with, I'm used to working with pine. I turned down 2x4s. You know, I learned to do all my lathe work on junk wood. When you get some nice wood like this, oh, it's a dream. So let's cut a piece and go turn something. And here we go. We took Carrie's beautiful hardwood and we made a couple of tools here. These are hand countersinks. They come in so handy in the shop. I use them all the time. And to make them, all you need is any kind of countersink you can put in here. You can just drill a hole in a piece of wood and stick it in. You're good to go. And this is that beautiful walnut you could see here. And I used a copper for this, and nothing more than a piece of copper tubing I found on one of my walks, and you just cut a piece off and slide it down, and put your countersinks in. I have 2 different types here, different sizes. A countersink really comes in handy if you want to use, like, for example, a piece of tube here. Always, if you cut it, always have some kind of burr on the inside. You can use your hand countersink to unburr the inside of that too. You can see how nicely, you can even see the little bevel it left on the inside. So that's a good use for this. The 2 different sizes are good if you have a small hole like this one here on this piece of scrap Delrin. You can see if I take this here and just spin this out like this, I can make a countersink in here. If I want to put a screw or something in here, I can make a countersink. You can see the chips that it takes off, and look at that nice countersink if you want to put a flathead screw in there, which is using a hand count. They come in handy so often. If you don't have one of these in the shop, you really need to make one. We always come across all different countersinks or whatever. You just stick it in a piece of wood And there we go. So out of that walnut, there's always a homemade tool waiting that you could make. What do you think of that? Okay, so in closing, that was a lot of fun. We have a pretty productive episode today. And special thanks to Carrie over at Ozark Bonsai for sending that great stuff over. Really appreciate it. And go check out her channel. I'm sure you'll find something great to watch. She has a lot on her playlists. And sure wish I could try out that sprinkler, if it was nice and warm out. But I'll leave you maybe with, I think I have a clip from the summer from me using one of the antique sprinklers, because we could use it now, right? In the middle of winter, you get kind of a little bit of cabin fever, and you just wish you can have that springtime feel. So anyway, hope you have a great day. We'll see you again on Wednesday. Take care now. Bye-bye.